As we sit here on August 25th, all of a sudden summer is shifting to fall, at least up here in Northwest Indiana. It's about a high of 70 today and the 50s this morning. So, of course, the weather must know that it's time for a change in not just the seasons in terms of how we feel about summer and fall, but of course, baseball may be shifting into those fall sports with football as well. And that means it's time to talk to the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Fish, great to see you as always. And I know we talked on the phone a couple weeks back. We touched on basketball a little bit and stuff because that's where my heart always lies. But football is officially kind of started a couple days ago. Now the Hoosiers are getting ready for their chance coming up real soon.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting football season without question. Kurt Signetti, of course, did the unthinkable a year ago in taking Indiana to the college football playoff in his first season as a head coach, a year in which Indiana football was rejuvenated to the point of which nobody has seen in 50 plus years at Indiana. Full houses for football games. What he did was absolutely historical and remarkable in one season. And now the expectations are there, and everybody's saying, can he do it again? Can this team be as good as it was 1 year ago? And in my mind, there's no doubt he can get it done again because I think he did a tremendous job in the recruiting of the transfer portal. He's got a great bunch of freshmen coming in this year. There's no doubt about that. And two or three of those guys will probably end up playing some football this season for IU. But there was a lot of work to do in the transfer portal. Signetti did that. He got a new quarterback. He got a couple of new offensive linemen that were really critical, which is always the point. You've got to have a strong offensive line and defensive line if you're going to compete in this conference. Indiana's rarely had that in the past, but they certainly had a better offensive line a year ago. And I think this year's team is much deeper in the offensive line than they have been for some time. So there are a lot of things that your question marks that people have about Indiana football right now. But the one that I'm not worried about is we've got one of the best coaches in the country.
One of the things about the transfer portal, too, that worked in Indiana's favor, not just the new players, but they didn't have a ton of guys enter the portal. Between, I think it was 13 guys, there was only 14 starts amongst that group. And so you retain a ton of players, but I think most importantly, Kurt Signetti's at the top, but you retain the coaching staff, which is a big part of continuing the growth of IU football.
No question. He lost one coach, Tino Santeri, who was he was the quarterbacks coach for this Indiana football team, and he went to UCLA, joined that group out there, which I don't blame him. I think his dad has something to do with UCLA as well. I think he's a scout or one of those recruiting gurus that works for UCLA. And Tino was really good with quarterbacks. There's no doubt about it. But Coach Cream, what am I thinking here? Coach Signetti went out. He got Chandler Whitmer. He's the new quarterbacks coach. He's from the Atlanta Falcons. And I think he fits perfectly with what Coach Signetti wants from his quarterback coaches. That's the only change that was made in their staff, which is a phenomenal, remarkable thing to happen, number one, because everybody came after those coordinators. Derek Owings, their strength and conditioning guy, was offered buku amounts of money to go to USC. I think Brian Haynes was offered a whole bunch of money to leave Indiana as well, the defensive coordinator, and he stayed. Indiana ponied up a lot of money for Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator. So this program is on the right track. There's no question about that. The coaching staff is there. The players are there. The question is, how tough is that schedule? And we know it's going to be a lot tougher this year.
Yeah, I think that's the topic of conversation for a lot of people nationally who have, if they've spent any time talking about Indiana, the word you just used, schedule, has been coming out of their mouth. And the non-conference portion of that is the big topic of conversation. So
Right.
what are your thoughts on where Indiana seems to find themselves and who they're not playing when it comes to outside of the Big Ten?
Well, I don't blame Scott Dolson and Kurt Signetti for doing what they did, lightening the schedule in the non-conference portion of the season. Your responsibility is to go out there and win football games, and we know the schedule is going to be difficult as far as Big Ten play is concerned. So you might as well take advantage of whatever opportunity you can in regard to the non-conference portion of the schedule to make sure you get wins out of that, because it all boils down to winning. If you don't win those football games, if you lose one key game during the season, you're toast probably for the college football playoff if you're in Indiana, if you know what I'm saying, because Indiana's respect has never been there, and from a college football perspective, and now it is. And so you've got to be able to win the games you're supposed to win. Indiana did exactly that last year, and then some. Beat teams that were predicted to beat Indiana, and my point of that is, look, play your schedule and beat every team that you can possibly beat on that schedule. And if you do well enough, you're going to the college football playoff. And they did that last year, and now they'll have an opportunity to do it again. And the SEC and the Big Ten, of course, both think that they're the greatest conference in the world from a football perspective. How about the SEC now changing their scheduling? They're going to go to a nine-conference schedule. Was it next year? I don't know how soon that's going to happen, but they've announced that they're going to go to a nine-conference schedule because the Big Ten obviously has nine competitors out of their conference to play each year. The SEC was complaining that a lot of SEC people were complaining about Indiana's schedule last year, and so they're going to a nine-conference game schedule to make it fair, so to speak. But they're also going to require their teams to play one Power Four conference, non-conference opponent, which is interesting in itself. So they're trying to one up the Big Ten. All I can tell you is I don't think any of this is a negative. I think it's all positive because you're being talked about, and Indiana's now being talked about all over the country.
Yeah, and one of those people who talks a lot and is associated with the conference you just mentioned is SEC, excuse me, is Paul Feinbaum,
Right.
and he said, "quote Indiana won't come within 1,000 miles of the college football playoff this year." So that may be up in the Indiana locker room, I'm guessing.
I
They're going to
would have,
find that.
if it's not, well, I would be surprised. I don't think there's going to be that rivalry, and I think it's just good. I think it's good for college football. Everybody's got their talking points, and what you have to do is you got to prove it on the field.
I got two things for you left. First, we'll finish talking about. I want to hear about the quarterback and some of the stuff you've seen at practice. But you mentioned some of the money earlier and helping to pay coordinators and do different things, and obviously NIL is a part of this. But
Yeah.
Scott Dolson and company went out and got themselves a new naming rights deal to the stadium. That's $50 million. I heard they're going to invest it all in the press box for the broadcasters. Just kidding. But that's a huge thing to see. I mean, that's not something people would have thought about probably just 2 or 3 years ago happening at Indiana football.
Well, Merchants Bank, a company here in Indianapolis, is the new donor to Indiana. It's not a new donor because Mike Petrie, who was the chairman of that company, has long time been an IU guy and has given a lot of money to the university through the years. But he ponied up 50 million over a 20-year period to have the field named Merchants Bank Field. And so it's not a new stadium name, it's basically a field name, which we'll talk about obviously in our broadcast because there's no question when you give something like $50 million to a program like Indiana's, that is saying something, if you know what I mean. So,
Mhm.
and let's face it, this world is all about money, and it's a sad scenario in that context. But at the same time, you've got to, if you're going to be a big time player, you've got to pony up the money. And obviously, Mike Petrie and his company, Merchants Bank, did so.
Last thing for you, you talked about the quarterback just a little bit earlier. Fernando Mendoza was the big transfer. He was one of the top two or three, definitely top five, depending on the rankings from certain people in terms of transfer quarterbacks available. Indiana able to get him to replace, obviously, a very talented quarterback that left their roster after last year. So, where are things at? It's a 1 year quarterback to another new quarterback. So, what have you seen from them in practice that excites you?
Well, the talent level that Mendoza has is everything you're looking for. He's 6'5", 225. He can run. Curtis Rourke's problem last year was that he had a torn ACL, partially torn ACL, but played on it, and he could not run effectively. So he Mendoza does bring Fernando Mendoza is the new quarterback, and obviously he brings something to the table we did not have last year, which was a guy who could flat out run. And I don't want to sit here and say that Mendoza is a scat back or something like that. He's not, but his speed when he takes off is something to behold. He outruns defensive backs a lot of the time. So I look at him as being one of the real keys to this football team this year. One of the great strengths that Curtis Rourke had was being able to make quick decisions with his throws based on what the defense gave him. I don't know how good Fernando is at that. We'll find that out here in the next few weeks. But as far as his throwing arm is concerned, Mendoza's probably got a little stronger arm than what Curtis Rourke had. He's accurate with his throws. He was chased down 47 times last year, sacked 47 times with a bad offensive line in front of him. That's one of the real strengths, I think, of this IU offense right now is the offensive line is better than it was a year ago and deeper than it was a year ago, which is huge for this program. And then you've got new running backs for the most part. Kalen Black is back, but you've got two other guys. Roman Hemby was Big Ten, all Big Ten running back from Maryland. He transferred to IU. Lee Beebe from UAB is a power back. Kalen Black is a power back. I just think that they've got the pieces to be a really good football team and have a great season.
We're looking forward to it here. Of course, exciting. The national landscape last year, the Hoosiers did made the college football playoff, and you're always trying to improve. So that'll be the goal, of course, at a minimum for Kurt Signetti's team this year. The
Yeah.
voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Always great to talk to you, Fish. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get a different background behind me because my office looks like it's a mess.
It's in preseason mode. Once we hit the 30th, then you're locked in at that point.
Thanks, Sam, for having me. I appreciate it.
And always, that's the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer.